You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves with a dominating fourth quarter. They pull away from Philly in crunch time. Final score, 126-112. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow at JRBorman13. Jack, lots to get into in this one. Dominating fourth quarter stretch. They made it rain from three. Plus, the glue guys stepping up big tonight. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves coming off that win versus Phoenix Sunday night. First game tonight of their back-to-back. First, a pretty banged-up Sixers team. Sluggish start, especially knowing, again, Philly was banged up, plus they're on their own back-to-back. 1 of 7 from 3 to start the game. They go up just 4 into halftime, and they needed a Mike Conley half-court buzzer beater just to do it. End of the third quarter, they started to heat up, and then in the fourth quarter, 76ers legs, again, second game of a back-to-back. You could just tell they got tired at the end. Wolves made it rain from 3, 18 threes on the night. That helped, again, cap off just a dominant fourth quarter, 43 point fourth quarter, by the way, to pull away and just kind of seal the deal. Naz Reid, team leading 23. Nikhil, we'll talk about him, 20 points, and Wolves win it, 126-112. They jump back up to 34 and 29, by the way. A big picture, I always like to start here. What do you see in big picture with Julius back in the lineup, his second game back, DDV turning red hot as of late, and kind of this new look 10-man rotation, I guess, Chris Finch has been able to play with. Big picture kind of aerial view. Where's the Wolves stock right now, Jack?
Yeah, it's improving. Back in that 7th spot, right behind the Warriors. So a good place for the Timberwolves to be, no doubt about it. I think, excuse me, it's exactly what you want on the front end of a back-to-back, in the sense that, Ant and Julius played a combined 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. They were able to kind of sit back and relax ahead of, tomorrow in Charlotte. Only 2 rotation guys played more than 30 minutes. That was Naz at 33 and Jaden at 37, which is awesome. A benefit of having that 9-man rotation that you mentioned. And then the top 7 guys in the rotation, all in double figures, all shot, 64% true shooting or better. The league average is 58%, so well above that. Super efficient game from everyone. Good to see Ant and Julius get to the free throw line. 12 free throw attempts between the two of them in the first half. And just a quick shout out too to Quentin Grimes' agent. Requested a trade from the Mavs right after the Luka trade, and that's turned out to be an awesome decision for him.
He looked like a Hall of Famer tonight. Good gracious.
He was fantastic, piggybacking off of that 44-point night on Saturday against the Warriors. Had a super efficient 30 tonight, and kind of as part of that too. Paul George just does not look like himself at all. And down the hall from me here, I'm seeing on Twitter that Nick Nurse has said he's, quote, certainly concerned about Paul George's groin injury that, had him questionable coming into tonight. And I think, just looking, if that's the Paul George you're going to be getting, they should shut him down and just tank, because their pick's going to OKC if it's outside of the top 6. So, but nonetheless, a fun one here tonight to see the Wolves kind of comfortably coast to a win in the fourth.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Jack, biggest turning point of the game tonight, when and who was the main catalyst?
Yeah, for sure. I think right at the end of the third quarter, Mike Conley hitting that buzzer beater 3. Everyone on Media Row is just kind of putting their head down like, man, they just cannot close these quarters after Kelly Oubre lays that in with 3 seconds left to, I think, tie the game at 80 at that point. And then for Mike to go down and hit that 3 just really started an avalanche in the fourth quarter for the Wolves. They scored on their first 6 possessions of the fourth quarter. 5 of those 6 makes were from 3. And then you throw in a Nick Nurse technical foul that Mike Conley made the free throw for. And it was super important for the Wolves to do that. They really needed that after, kind of playing with their food and turning it over a ton. We'll get into that a little bit later. in the first 3 quarters. So for them to come out in the first 8 minutes of this fourth quarter, really put it away. Shot 12 of 14 from the floor, 86% in the first 8 minutes, 6 of 8 from 3, 6 of 6 from 2, 10 assists and 0 turnovers. It is awesome as far as offensive efficiency and getting it done on that end of the floor in the first 8 minutes of this game to put it away. And then, I mean, they finished the fourth quarter 17 of 21, 10 of 12 from 2, 7 of 9 from 3, 13 assists, just 1 turnover. So for a team that we've lamented over and over about some of their fourth quarter struggles, it was really nice to just see them pour the gas on and just light the whole arena on fire from 3. And again, for the Wolves, I mean, if you count Mike Conley's shot at the end of the third quarter, the Timberwolves made 6 threes in 3 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah, 6 in a row, right? Six straight.
From Mike's shot to close the quarter to that, whatever that, I think it was a Dante shot that forced a Nick Nurse timeout. They made 6 threes in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. The Sixers had 7 all game at that point. Wow. And so, I mean, it just kind of shows that the 3-point shot can be the great equalizer. So,
Jack, I want your game MVP. Maybe it's not so obvious. You know, usually I bet you 2 out of 3 games we're going to come on here and it's going to be the Ant-Man. But I want your game MVP. I want him right after this.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
All right, Jack, game MVP. Talk to me. Lay it on us.
Yeah, I think for me, it's got to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he was a really important fire starter for the Wolves at key moments in that second quarter and that fourth quarter. I think that those have kind of been the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, moments and times that he's really shined, and especially in the fourth quarter of late. But yeah, I mean, in the second quarter, he comes out, he assists on a Mike Conley corner 3, then gets a pick 6 off of Kelly Oubre for a layup, and then drained a 3. So he created the first 8 points of the second quarter for the Wolves to get some momentum that then TJ Shannon really took to another level with that super tough transition finish that kind of looked like a running back dragging a defender through the end zone and didn't get a foul call. But that was a 10-2 run to go up 8 points. And I think really kind of gave the Wolves some much needed breathing room after a really just an awful first quarter. I mean, they played about as badly as they could have in that first quarter. So for Nickeil to create some positive energy there, fuel an 19-8 run in the first 6 minutes, 10 of those points came on the fast break. So I think speaks to the way that, Nickeil's out there. The Wolves generally do a good job of, 1, getting stops, and then 2, getting out and running off of those stops is always good. And it was important to note that this was an important kind of moment for Nickeil, because Dante was really struggling in that first half, just looked completely out of rhythm, something that is pretty atypical for him. We normally say that he finds a way to get in a rhythm almost every single game, no matter kind of what the external circumstances are. But he closed the first half over Dante because of how well he was playing in that second quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, right, Nickeil Alexander-Walker time. He made a pair of threes, hit that first one, which I think really kind of let everybody in the arena just kind of take a deep breath and be like, all right, 6-point lead, we're fine. And then to have that Naz Reid extra pass, find him in the corner for another 3 there. So a couple of threes in the first minute and 30 seconds of that fourth quarter was huge. I think just kind of started an avalanche that, we talked about with the 5 threes there. And then, I think too, it was really important that he didn't just get satisfied with making 3-point shots. He and Dante DiVincenzo were making all these hustle plays that really got the crowd into it. And certainly something that, blue collar crowd here really appreciates that we've seen, last year and even dating back to, 2 and 3 years ago when you had that kind of Vando, Pat Bev, McDaniels team that just flew around and
good shout out there. Yeah. Good
played super aggressively defensively. So it was just really fun to see those 2 guys kind of then work in tandem in the second half. So got to give a big shout out to Nickeil, who is a team high plus 32 in 27 minutes and 20 points on 8 of 11 shooting. He'll take that all day long.
Plenty more deep dive from this one, including the other non-stars doing some dirty work tonight. Plus, we'll touch on the young guns as well. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed if you win your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get on some NBA future action while you're there. Naz Reid 6 Man of the Year odds. Keeps fluctuating. 5-1 one night, 6-1 the next night. Sitting at 5-1 right now as we speak. It's all sitting up, though, over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Okay, Jack, give me a negative, man. I mean, obviously a 126-112 dominating victory. What's the one thing that maybe had you banging the table that you want to see them clean up moving forward? If I was a betting man, I would bet you're about to say turnovers.
I am. Cash that ticket, baby.
Cash me, baby. That was about minus 800, but we'll take the win.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could do the whole kind of go down the leaderboard thing here and talk about all these other stats that weren't so great either. But with the turnovers, for sure, I think, 19 turnovers for 21 Sixers points is pretty brutal, considering that the Timberwolves coming into this game had, been a team that had done a great job of taking care of the ball. They're second in the league in turnover percentage in their last 5 at 10.3%, well below the league average of 14.5%. And then turnovers 10.6 per game over the last 5 was least in the NBA. So this is something that obviously was more of a theme in the early part of the season, but has not been an issue for the Wolves really the last month, 6 weeks or so. But that really reared its head. I mean, they had 7 turnovers in the first quarter, 7 turnovers again in the third quarter. And I think a lot of that coincided with, the starting lineup just not really having a whole lot of cohesion out there. Tonight, the starting lineup was Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid. I just think, they didn't really know who to go to and who to play through. And I think, it's a group that hasn't played a ton of minutes together this season for a group that's starting this late in the year. And I think, again, I think Ant and Julius and so back up a second. So Naz and Jaden have really seen their roles elevated quite a bit in the last, month with Dante and Julius out, and then even throw Rudy Gobert in there too with him out. Those guys have played more minutes and been asked to do more scoring wise. And I think especially for Naz, it's been a little bit more of an adjustment for him in terms of when is he driving, when is he spacing, is he playing in the middle of the floor, is he playing in the corners? And there's just not as much off the ball movement either from guys like Ant and Julius. And when those two guys are out there playing at the same time and they're both having the kind of the same issues of holding the ball, not moving without the basketball, it can just kind of clog things up and just kind of bog the offense down in the half court and kind of limits the kinetic energy, I like to call it. There's not as much ball movement. Teams playing way too early in the shot clock and taking bad shots with 15, 16, 17 seconds left on the shot clock. So there was a lot of that when those two guys were on the floor at the start of the first quarter and the start of the third quarter. The good news for the Wolves in the first quarter was that those two guys were aggressive in getting downhill and did a much better job of getting to the free throw line. I think between the two of them, 12 of their 13 free throw attempts came in that first quarter. So, or first half for sure. But really active in the first quarter, especially for those two guys. And then it just kind of tapered off after that in the third quarter. There just wasn't a whole lot of aggression from either one of them. I think they had 3 combined points in that third quarter. Ant did not score in the third. Ant didn't score in the second half, period. And so I think it just is going to take them a little bit of time to kind of figure that out. I think, again, I'd still advocate for Dante starting for Mike, just because I think especially – before they both got hurt, Dante and Julius found a really nice rhythm playing together. So I would have liked to see Finch try to pair those guys together more.
Do you think that's on the table moving forward? I know
I think
that,
so.
that not only you are banging the table for that, but a lot of people in the chat night to night and things like that as well. But knowing Finch like you know Finch, do you think that's on the table? It sounds like possibly yes.
For sure
Yeah,
it will be, because that's what he went to for the last 6 games before Dante got hurt.
Right.
I just wonder if the Rudy domino is part of the reason why they're waiting on that. Just in the sense that, I think if you don't start Mike, you can then bring Mike in when you like to play Rudy at the back half of the half of the first quarter in those Nas Rudy minutes. So that could certainly be part of it. But again, like, it's tough to put yourself in a hole right away. And I think that's kind of what they're doing with some of these starting lineups. And it's a little bit, unfortunate. But again, I think, we saw what could happen when, the Wolves move the ball really well, space the floor really well, move without the basketball, drive intentionally, kick it out intentionally, and just continue to hunt open space on the floor. And that's what we saw at the start of the 4th quarter. And again, it's important to note that offensive explosion for the Wolves came without both Ant and Julius on the floor. Yeah. I don't think that, you can just talk about there being open shots there for sure, and them actually making open shots. But I think a lot of that had to do with the spacing that was created by them moving without the ball and sharing it and making quick decisions.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, Ant, no points in the second half. Big game for the glue guys. We already touched on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You touched on Mike Conley. How about some stats that you just really liked tonight? I know Jaden had 4 stocks in the first half. That tied a career high for him. But what other stats did you like or that popped out tonight from this one?
Yeah, I just think just to hit on Mike a little more too.
Oh, sure,
Mike was really important in that 3rd quarter, as was Jaden. Sticking with those two guys for a quick minute. I mean, those two guys scored or assisted on 21 of the 26 Wolves points in the 2nd quarter. I thought Jaden has, second straight game where he's kind of picked his spots at a really important time in the 3rd quarter when the offense is struggling a little bit. And so for him to give them 8 points, had a couple of nice attacks from the corner, got out in transition, playing really well was awesome. And and I liked the way that Mike just kind of took control of things, in that, midway through that 3rd quarter when the offense was sputtering a little bit, having Ant and Julius with the ball in their hands a little too much. So that was great to see. I mean, Mike to have 12 points on 6 shots, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and was second on the team in plus minus at plus 20 is a classic Mike game. So I think it's great to see one of those come across when we haven't had it in a while. And then
been a minute for sure.
And then I think for the Wolves, again, that 120 number is kind of the magic number that we've seen for the Wolves. They're now 12-2 when they score at least 120, and they're now 19-8 when they shoot at least 40% from 3. I mean, you look at the shooting splits for Minnesota tonight: 57% from the floor, 45% from 3, 18 made threes, and 16-17, 94% from the free throw line. But again, I mean, you look around this box score, they got out rebounded on the offensive glass 12-7 and got outscored in second chances 15-8. They lost the points off turnover battle 21-17. They lost 56-50 in the paint. They lost 27-17 in free throw attempts. They lost 86-81 in terms of overall shots taken. But I think that just kind of speaks to the 3-point shot being able to be the great equalizer. I mean, they doubled up Philadelphia in terms of points scored from the 3-point line, 54-27, and that's the game right there. And then just also nice to see the bench get back on track. 40 points from the bench tonight. We'll beat the Sixers there 40-29, and so that's obviously good to see. Dante and Nickeil back and what they were doing in the very early parts of the season is a very nice duo coming off the bench, providing some punch and just efficient scoring. And then last one for me, probably the best team stat outside of the shooting efficiency was the fast break points. They had 22 fast break points, won 22-19 in that arena. And for reference, Denver leads the NBA in fast break points per game at 20 points per game. So anytime you're above 20, that's a really good number. And that's something that the Wolves have been doing phenomenally of late. So something that they'll definitely want to continue against a Charlotte team that is not very good. So a great game, checking a lot of boxes. Another team win, kind of like we saw versus Phoenix on Sunday. Couple minutes left. Let's talk about the Hornets game tomorrow night. Plus, we'll wrap up
with what we'll be talking about. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. You know, when your schedule gets packed with work projects and more, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Okay, Hornets up next on the back-to-back. Early tip, finally, 6 p.m. Central. They flat out stink, man. Losers of 7 straight, right? 2-18, I think you're about to fling out here in their last 20. So, of course, a team like that worries the hell out of me, Jack. Talk me off the ledge a little bit. How well should the Wolves match up with the Hornets and stack up their 3rd win in a row tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, I think normally you'd be a little worried, at least that the Hornets have a star in LaMelo Ball that can really kind of explode at any time offensively and can really create some easy shots for his teammates when defenses are overcommitting to him. But LaMelo's really struggled lately. Last 5 games here, only 15.8 points per game on 35% shooting, 33% from 3. He's only averaging 5 assists a game to go with, the usual 3 turnovers. So his assist to turnover ratio is much lower than what we normally see from LaMelo. And I think in part that's just because the guys around him are pretty bad right now. Miles Bridges is the only guy that's shooting above league average from 3 in their last 10 games. He's the only guy above 16 points a game in their last 10. So those LaMelo numbers were last 10. And I guess the only other bright spot, if you want to say, for Charlotte has been Mark Williams, ironically, the guy that they tried to trade to the Lakers at the trade deadline and had that trade get rescinded. And, it's probably a good thing for them that happened because he's been really good, averaging, 16 and 11 on 58% shooting in the last 10 games. And very much like Philadelphia in the sense that the back half of their rotation team that's actively trying to lose games is just super rough. And it's a bummer for them that they don't have Brandon Miller, who's out for the year with a torn ligament in his wrist. So you won't see him. And I think they're just devoid of a lot of, offensive talent and options that they have because guys in the back half of the rotation are, young guys that they're pretty raw, young guys that they're trying to develop. So again, I think it's just a game where you'd hope that guys like Nikhil and Dante can bring a level of energy and professionalism to the game that can maybe, account for maybe Ant or Julius playing down to the level of the competition. But again, it should be a good opportunity for Julius too. If the Hornets are going to guard him with Miles Bridges, I think he should definitely feast in that game tomorrow. And I think Ant should as well. If his thumb is okay. I talked to some Wolves folks at halftime, said it was a thumb issue for Ant. Officially that he came out of the game, got it checked out, got it wrapped. So structurally thumb is fine. So we'll just see if that thing swells up tomorrow or kind of overnight tonight, flying to Charlotte. We'll see. But, he was obviously good enough to go back into the game tonight.
Right.
And it was just one of those happened on a rip through, kind of though he's running through the lane, takes the ball up and someone just slapped his thumb pretty good when he was going out. So asked to come out of the game, got that checked out. So we'll see if he's able to go. I would expect Julius Randle to be able to go, considering that he's been over 30 minutes in each of the first 2 games that he's been back, and that Dante played in the second night of a back-to-back in Phoenix. Right. Was it Phoenix or Utah? Whatever.
Utah, I think.
Game.
Last Thursday. Yeah.
So I think they probably waited a little longer to bring those guys back so that they could, be around a little bit more.
They're not babying them. Yeah, we'll see about Julius, but they're not babying them, which is nice.
Yeah, and so I would much rather have them wait until they feel good enough to not baby guys when they come back, because you're seeing what's going on with Paul George right now. Right. It's just something that you don't want to see. I don't think you want to ask guys to play if they're not really ready and able to be their best self. So But should
you never know on a back-to-back. Yeah, you never know on a back-to-back for sure. Maybe the wild card ends up, getting some rest, whoever that might be. We'll see. To your point about the possible flare-up tomorrow morning with Ant's thumb, but again, big picture, he did come back, so all signs point to him playing. We'll see how that all shakes out, though. But yes, hopefully, all signs point to a third win in a row.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Last one for you. What's the water cooler talk tomorrow at work after this 126-112 victory?
Yeah, I think for me it'll just be about how nice it is to have Dante DiVincenzo back again. It's kind of been the water cooler talk, but just the way that I think all the extra effort plays and the timely shot making has been so important for this team. And I think without him, there were nights where this team really, really struggled to shoot the ball from three. And it was just really nice to see him right in the mix of a team shooting 18 of 40, 45% from three. I think the way that he moves the ball, the way that he moves without the ball, the way that he always tries to get out in transition, makes hit ahead passes, is really good at getting to the middle of the lane and kicking the ball out. I just think both his shot making ability, but his playmaking ability as a shooter, knowing what he wants from a playmaker so that he can then be that playmaker for his teammates is really important. And so I think it's a big reason why the Wolves 3-point rate and their 3-point percentage is way up when he's on the floor. And then, you saw it towards the end of the game where he dives, creates that steal, loose ball goes into the backcourt, dives for it, taps it to save it, and then Nikhil gets a dunk, and then get a Sixers timeout, and Nikhil and him are egging on the crowd, and like we said, this crowd really appreciates that, and he's hopefully a player that will be around for a long, long time in a Timberwolves jersey because he's a perfect fit around Ant and Nas and Jaden, and plays exactly the way that Finchie wants him to play. So. Definitely good to have.
You're obviously there, Jack. You probably didn't hear the broadcast, I'm assuming, obviously, but they were talking about how huge DDV is and has been, and how that cat trade does not happen unless they got DDV in return. I mean, they rejected Julius straight up for Cat, and obviously you see why, man. And we all knew the potential back at the beginning when this trade went down. It was just such a sluggish, slow start, but I feel like we're finally there. Are we not?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a stock, right? Yeah. I think it's when, a stock's going down because of, just the general state of affairs in the market, not because of the kind of the underlying financials of the company. That's kind of what it was for me with Dante. It just kept buy any dip. Let me buy the dip,
baby. Yeah,
all the cash I have, just pour that into the Dante dip, because this is the player that we saw in New York. All year, really the whole second half of the year last year, just with way more shot attempts than he has been having right now. Mm-hmm. And I think he only had 9 because he only played 23 minutes and was struggling a little bit in the first half. But he's been everything the Wolves could ask for, really after getting over that slow start the first couple of weeks. But awesome player, and really fun when he and Julius are both working in tandem like they have been certainly for stretches since they've both been back.
Great stuff per usual. T-Wolves, they make it rain from 3 tonight, 18 3-pointers. They dominate the fourth quarter in crunch time. Final score versus the Sixers, 126-112. They jump up to 34-29 on the year, 5 games above 500. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and go follow Jack on X at JRBorman13, live from the Target Center during almost every home game. Charlotte up next tomorrow night on the back-to-back. We got an early one, 6 p.m. tip-off. We'll catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then,